What's happening, everyone? Today, I'm here with Andrew.
Hello.
And if you haven't checked out Flatland Brewery, you are doing yourself a great disservice, and you really should. This is the Pilsner.
Pilsner. Al dente. Coming out Friday.
Al dente.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's delicious.
And so you guys have been around for how long? When did you start?
9 years. Yeah. So it was kind of a weird handshake agreement with the business that was there. It was a homebrew supply store. And I was working there kind of part-time, getting, discount on my homebrew ingredients. And December 15th of 2015 is when the handshake agreement went through. Paid $30,000 for the business that was there and pretty much turned it into what we have now, which is kind of crazy to think back then. I mean, it was pretty ghetto back then. There was like old futons hanging around, carports for a patio cover. It was in bad shape, but definitely to see where it has come and is now, I think is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I know from like your posts and everything, like I've seen that, but I didn't actually make it out there until you guys were already established. You had the tasting room and everything.
You lucked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in bad shape.
I almost wish I could have been out there with the futons,
Yeah, with all the spiders and everything else on them.
Hey, no. Yeah, it's just like my car when I bought it from the tweaker.
You know what? Hey, yeah, just progress, right? Yeah. No, but it's been a journey for sure. And so the celebration of 9 years, that just happened in January. We made a bunch of beers with some really cool breweries from around the area, and they're all journey themed, right? So it's been a journey to get to 9 years. And so Journey to the Future, Lost in Travel, Destination Unknown, and then Long Road to Somewhere is all the 4 beers that we came up with. And then, of course, Year 9 Stout. That just has a following on its own.
Sure.
That doesn't need a cute name to it, but...
It's a stout.
It's a stout.
It barely needs a name at all.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah, just spent plenty of time in barrels and, did its own thing with a bunch of other cool flavors. But
you just put it in your cereal and you're good to go.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of cereal, we did a beer called Dynamite with a Laser Beam. Obviously a Queen reference.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Really funny label, like all holographic, crazy artwork. And it's a hazy IPA with coffee and Fruity Pebbles cereal. And talk about breakfast, right? It's like orange juice, cereal. You get a little bit of hop character out of it. It's the coffee, the element there. It was such a fun, bizarre beer.
Wow.
But, yeah.
What made you want to put Fruity Pebbles in there?
Because we're weird, number one. I mean, just we don't have any rules. And, me being the guy doing it all, it's like, I'm just going to try this. But we also found this coffee that had this Fruity Pebble flavor to it. It's an Ethiopian coffee, but then it has like this flavored thing on top of it. So you get like this huge amount of Fruity Pebble, like insanity flavor and aroma. I was like, well, we could do a stout with it. But I was like, in my mind, I'm like, let's do something fruity and weird and totally bizarre. And it found its way into an IPA.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really cool.
How? Is it still around?
I haven't. No, it's definitely been on the list to rebrew because we've made it probably 3 or 4 times. And every time it's like, we throw people off, people have no idea what's coming and they fall in love with it immediately. And then we just never, we're like, I don't know. We're like one of those weird brands that just like, if you really love it, we're just going to kill it because we don't want to make it anymore, and kind of keep that like little bit of nostalgia alive, like batch one or, if you ever watch an old movie that when we were kids growing up, we'd watch a movie, whatever it be, Land Before Time. You go back and rewatch that. It's terrible, right? It's better just to leave it alone and just let the memory be.
Yeah. Where was the dad?
Right.
Where was he? Was he in court? I don't know.
Dinosaur court?
Yeah.
Oh, this Pils is great though, man. Al dente, to the tooth, firm, right? Bitter. A little dry hopped with Sapphire, which is a German hop that is kind of in between like a new school American thing. It's kind of inspired by the new wave of really bright tropical fruity hops, but it doesn't quite get there. It's like that lemon zest, that dried thyme sort of thing.
It also doesn't overpower you with the fruitiness, It's like it's a hint only if you're really looking for it.
Right. Yeah, it's still Pilsner base, right?
Yeah.
You want something like a dad beer that you can just crush and, jump off a lawnmower and pound.
Yeah, drink all day beer.
It really is. It's lower ABV. It's 5%. You could totally drink it all day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the real trick is like, because, you get the heavy ones, and then you want to like taper down. Otherwise, wife makes me sleep on the couch.
Yeah. Or I fall asleep on the couch on my own. That tends to happen here and there. Yeah. It's funny. I have an internal rule to where if I'm out in public drinking beers, because I tend to do that pretty often, I don't drink anything over 7%.
Yeah.
It's like, 7% and below, even if it's a beer I really want that's higher ABV, I'm like, no, I'm good. Like I'll buy a 4-pack or whatever, drink it at home. But yeah, I don't need that ABV at the place I'm at because generally I'm driving or doing whatever, trying to be social. I don't want to get hammered immediately.
Yeah.
Time and place, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I've made the mistake a couple times where like I'm tapering down with Corona, then like I grab one of the, like I have beers there that's like, I just buy them for the picture sometimes.
Yeah,
so I have little kitten beers or whatever. And I grab a kitten beer and that's like 8%. And it's like half of that will just end your day.
Yeah. It adds up quick too, especially after, you had a few others.
Yeah.
A little nightcap. Yeah. That's what I like about beers like this, like flavorful, crushable. And for me, like I'm always looking for texture and like carbonation and all the proper weird things that brewers look for. So I have a weird time with beer overall because rarely am I really excited about a beer. It's just, it's a tough experience because I'm always breaking it down, especially our own beers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're basically a scientist. You're a beer scientist.
Yeah. We talk about it in a lot of different ways, and science is heavily involved in brewing, obviously. Like there's college programs and literal schools built on brewing alone, right? I didn't do any of those. I just did University of YouTube. So that was my education, but I feel like it is very scientific, but there's also very cool artistic element to it too. It's like if you think about the culinary world or like restaurants and kitchens and high badass chefs, they're putting flavors together, right? That's all they're doing is combining flavors to get to a finished target. And I think that's kind of what we do. Obviously it's a lot of science base and acid base and pH and all those things. But if you can find a flavor combination that works really well overall, and that's pleasing, that's still a fun concept, then goal. Right, that's it. Now, trying to hit that is nearly impossible.
Well, especially because it's you and you are extra critical because it's something that you did.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
I mean, I doubt, have you ever had a beer where you're like, this is the one? 100%.
Not all the way through, because I'll drink the beers from like day one, even before day one, really, right? Like package day one, and then all the way through its life. And there's very few moments, I'm like, this beer is fucking dope. But then it's like, nah, I want to change this and this. So then I'll tweak it, and I'll never be able to get back to that one moment that I had. It's like that constant pursuit of perfection. Mm-hmm. It's a mental game, really, because you're always trying to be perfect at it, and I don't think you'll ever get there. So it's exhausting because you're never fully satisfied.
Right.
But when you do taste that one pint at the right time, whether it be poured properly or you just had a longer day or a shorter day, whatever it is, in the right moment, that you have that one perfect pint, and you're like, this is perfect, this is great. But then you got to enjoy that because it's fleeting.
Yeah. Well, and there's so many variables, right? Like there's the hops, and like maybe they got too much sun, maybe they got too much water, maybe it wasn't hot enough.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, that's about as far as my beer knowledge goes,
Yeah.
other than drinking it, there's
totally.
hops and water.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely hops and water. The crazy thing with beer is people expect it to be extremely consistent, right? I came from a wine background, and people embrace the year to year variance, right? It's agriculture. It's you're embracing high sun, it'd be an early bloom or whatever it is in the wine world. It's the same for beer. It's still agriculture, right? You're still using brewers' grains or grains that are grown specifically for brewing or malted. And that process is variable, right? If the weather sucks that year, your malt sucks that year. And it's for the entire year. Now you have to try to find a consistent thing. And if you like big brewers, they blend everything. So it's like easier to blend and kind of get a final product that you're looking for. But then hops also, right? Like it's agriculture. And so you're growing these things. They grow up 20 feet in the air, and some hills will have more sun or less sun, or more water, less water, just like you said. And then harvest time. If there's a big weather shift during harvest of all the hops, you can get wind burn and it changes everything. Cool thing is like there's hop selection, And so you actually get a opportunity to go up to Yakima or wherever the hops that grow. I mean, obviously Yakima.
Oh, all the way up in Washington?
Washington, yeah.
Hey, I was
Yep.
just up there, actually.
Oh, is that right?
I was there a couple days ago.
Where in Washington?
In Yakima.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, and I was staying in Wenatchee.
Yeah.
Flew into Seattle and ended up driving down to Medford. But went all around for it was a work trip. But and it was that poor rental car.
Oh, I bet. I bet. Yeah, every rental car that goes through there. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, Yakima is not necessarily, they call it the Palm Springs of Washington.
Yeah.
I don't know about that because there's like one or two cool places to go to. Just a cool area, but like as brewers, like we go there for hop selection and that's about it, right? There's like some cool breweries. Obviously, the hop growers have the whole entire like reign of that city, but yeah, so going to select was a really cool experience because let's say a hop like Citra, right? Pretty well known. I feel like a lot of people know that name. We were able to get a lot of 3 different Citras, 3 different lots, and you're rubbing, smelling them, trying to figure out what you want to use for your year. So you're just like saying, hey, I'm going to buy all of this one lot for my entire production for the year. And in a raw form, pretty wild difference between all 3 lots. And then you get it processed because then they pelletize it. It goes through like this weird little like rabbit food pelletizing. And then you get it into your brewery and you're like, oh, this is not what I selected. It's totally different, because there's just that delta between raw form to processed to final form in beer to like, you got to figure out what that is. And that's just all experience based. But yeah, it's agriculture, right?
Well, it's like it even would come down to like the metal, the type of metal that they use to crush it and
absolutely
like deform it, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
and temperature. Because if you think about the reason why brewers use hops is oils, right? Just like cannabis, right? You were trying to extract the oils that we want. And alcohol is a solvent. And so that's kind of our way to do it. And heat is the other way. So if we're trying to extract these oils and the processor is pelletizing at a higher temp, it's burning off some of the volatile oils that we may want. So recently there was just in the last maybe 7 years, there was new, again, with cannabis extraction, I feel like the hop world and the beer world has learned a lot from cannabis. And so you're doing nitrogen purge processing or CO2 extraction. And so much cooler temps, even like supercritical extraction. So we're getting now oils that and enzymes that are carrying over to the final product. Long story short, but there's also other problems with that too, because now there's enzyme in a beer that was never there before that is creating another issue that we have to combat. But at least I feel like that's a big part of why these new beers are more aromatic than ever. Like these new IPAs, if you look at like North Park, like we did a beer with North Park, I feel like they're making some of the best IPAs in the nation. Definitely California. And, there's the way they get their hop oil out. And I think a lot of it is the processing of the pelletizer that we're using or whoever, Yakima Chief using. And of course the way you extract it through your own process, but yeah.
Right. I mean, do you so when you pick a lot, is it like, are they already harvested or is it like still growing?
Yeah. So by the time we get up there, it's already harvested.
Oh, okay.
And so it'll be like lot 3912, right, and whatever else. And you get all your lots side by side. And, there's how many hop? I mean, there's 250 hop varieties essentially that we get to choose from. There's different purveyors that we can choose through. And the hard part is contracting. You're like, hey, I want, 1,000 pounds of this, 500 pounds of this, 8,000 pounds of this or whatever, depending on your size. And you're on the hook for it, so yeah. It's big money too. So you got to be cautious. And I think I kind of overcommitted a little this last year.
Well, I mean, maybe not. You're just projecting growth.
That's true. That is true. Yeah. And I feel like we, lagers are starting to be more popular right now. So we've been brewing more lagers. And so they used a different hop. So the hops that we selected to say, hey, we need this many pounds of, we're not quite using as much as we were because now we're making more lagers. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of like super deep inside baseball of the beer world.
Well, that's what we're here. We're here to get
perfect.
caught in the moment, right?
I love it.
I mean, it's just a wild, for somebody I imagine this was just started as a hobby, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Started as a hobby only when you were 21.
Actually, it was, I think, even later than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't really get into beer. So my wife, she went to Chico State and,
so did I.
Oh, funny.
For a little bit.
Yeah. So same. I felt like it was my fault she left early, but yeah, that's another story.
It's Chico's fault that people leave early.
Probably so.
Yeah.
But and we were in beer mecca world, and we just never drank beer. Of course, you're partying a little bit up there. You're not drinking beer necessarily. You're not drinking good beer.
Yeah.
It was Natty Ice, Power Hour, and Captain Morgan, and all the terrible things that when you're
Sticky
18,
floors.
19, or 21.
Yeah.
Yeah, sticky floors. But yeah, so I got into beer. Actually, our mutual friend Brendan Lowenthal got me into it.
Shout out to Brendan.
Hey. So I got off work one day and he was at the house. We had a shared apartment. And he was like, "Hey, I'm going to brew some beer. You want to help out?" And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, dude. Let's I didn't know this is a thing, right? Like, it's all new to me." And we were kind of already like dipping our toes in a little bit of like some European beers and stuff like that. But we were like, let's just give it a go. Literally the next day I went out and bought my own equipment and started brewing. It's the most addictive thing I've ever experienced. More the process in the beer. Obviously the beer's great, but
Well, you haven't tried meth yet.
that's true. I haven't tried meth. I'm up for everything. So do you have some?
No.
Okay, good.
No.
Yeah. No.
I stick to beer.
Okay, good. Yeah, you and me both. No, I do know I have an addictive personality, so I got to be careful of like.
So do I.
Yeah. So I can't touch most things. So yeah, I know my limits.
Yeah.
But that's why beer's perfect. Like it's artistically creative. It's a lot of science based. I'm a super nerd too. So like getting on the minute levels of how to change these things really, really kind of excites me. And I feel like that's why our brewery is kind of where it is. Cause we're always evolving. We're always changing. We're always, we're not just sitting on our laurels and be like, oh, this beer was good back in, 16. We're going to leave it as it is.
Yeah. Well, you can tell when you get there and because I tried to like not buy the same beer twice when I was over there. And it's like, you can tell that you have a passion that you put it in there. Like you could tell that somebody who had the idea of starting this place is the one that's making the beer.
Yeah.
Like you're not contracting out for somebody like, oh, I like that beer. Let's bring it in. It's like, oh, I want those hops at the hop draft.
Yeah.
And you could tell when you get in there
that's
when
cool.
you start drinking,
And that's kind of the story, man. Like I think there's so much that beer can do. Again, just alcoholic beverage in general, but beer is my one like really close to home thing. It can be a sense memory. It can take you somewhere. It can be a whole experience. It could be a ballpark beer. It could be a barbecue beer. It could be something like come to our tasting room. You're going to get a full experience because all of our bartenders know everything about the beers. So if you have a question, you can get answered. If you're a home brewer, like we can totally geek out on all those different levels. If you're just an average consumer, you're like, I don't really feel comfortable in a brewery, we have a beer for you too. Like just come in, right? So that's the kind of cool thing about it. And I listen to a lot of podcasts about beer mostly, but a little bit about everything. But a lot of the people in the beer industry are super passionate.
Yeah.
And so it's such a unique industry because it is almost 100% passion based. Because we all know the money sucks in beer. It's like margins are terrible. It's hard to turn profit.
Well, in most kind of foods, right?
Any hospitality, right? Any hospitality. And especially these days, right? Where post-COVID, it's been quite a bit different than it was pre-COVID. But I think there's something to that, It's like I'd rather have a passion-based industry to where I feel fulfilled, even chasing perfection is relentless, but I feel a little more fulfilled having a beer that I can serve to people and people come in and they're stoked to come in, having a place for people to show up at. It's pretty wild. I never thought I would do this.
Yeah. And I mean, beer's kind of like, it's like a social drink, right?
Absolutely.
It's not like absinthe where you drink it in a dark corner alone.
On fire. That's your light.
Yeah. But it's like, this is like, hey, come over and have a beer after work, or like, hey, the fridge is full. Like, come grab a beer. I mean, I basically drink beer on all the episodes.
Perfect.
Most of them.
Yeah.
But
as you should.
And some of them, since I've visited your place, a lot of them have been these. So it's good for everybody to put like a face with the can, if you will. And so when did it start to be like, this is just a hobby and now I'm making money off it? Like, what was that? Like, because that was a decision, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely. So that was back in 2015. And that handshake agreement with Frank, who owned the homebrew supply store previously. And honestly, it was just like one of those things. We kept talking about it and talking about it and talking about it. And then he threw out a number and he was like, hey, I don't want to sell the business, but I want to focus on my religion and focus on the family. And he was like, I like you. And he was like, I'd sell it to you if you want it. And I'm like, I went home, talked to Michelle about it. And I'm like, gosh, I think we could do something really cool with this. The location sucks. Like it's in the middle of freaking nowhere. Elk Grove is kind of growing around us, but before any of the growth, there was absolutely nothing around us. So that was kind of like a little thing. I'm like, gosh, it could be a better location. And definitely could be a better price because initially it was like $100,000 for the business. And we kind of did like an inventory management thing. It was like, all right, how much inventory is here? How much goodwill is there? Is it worth $100,000? And it was definitely not. I mean, he did a great job of making what he did do with it. But just for what I would get out of it, it wasn't quite worth the money that he was asking. So I'm like, all right, so we negotiated down to 30,000.
Well, that's a hell of a negotiation.
Yeah. Well, again, he liked me, right? So like, sweet talking old ladies and stuff.
Wow. I don't even know if my wife likes me $70,000 worth. I don't know.
Well, shoot, that's possibly true. Yeah. So we just got lucky, I guess. And so literally we opened the business for $30,000 and it was a handshake on December 15th. I was still working. I was at Nugget Markets doing all the beer, wine, and spirits. And so, I was like, all right, December 31st, after New Year's, big wine sales day, obviously, I'm gonna leave. And so, did that and pretty much took off running, dude. 3 weeks later, we opened. And so it was a very crazy 3 weeks of like remodel, get rid of all the homebrew stuff. And then that's kind of why I was in shambles when it first opened up because we didn't have enough time or resources. I mean, we literally had $30,000 and it went straight to payment. We had no money to rebuild. And so, yeah, I mean, I was 30 at that time. So we already had kids in a house and we're like, this is a pretty scary time to make this decision.
Yeah.
Quitting my job for something that could possibly pay nothing.
That's the real trick. Cause when you have a passion and you're on that ledge of like, I want to make this into a business. You have to like say, I'm not going to get a paycheck anymore.
Yeah.
Like I may not get a paycheck for a little while.
Yeah, it's been 9 years. Yeah. Yeah. That was honestly the craziest part about it. It was like, all right, so I know Michelle had her job and she got paid decently. I'm like, all right, worst case scenario, we could fall back on that 100%. Best case scenario, this thing actually takes off and does what it needs to do. Mm-hmm. So it was like, all right, so we're just going all of January, from January 1st to January 22nd is when we opened up. It was just like all hands on deck, remodel, rebuild, do everything we can, get, new beers brewed and packaged and getting ready to open up. Opening day, it poured cats and dogs. It like literally was the biggest storm of like winter. And of course it happened to be on our opening day, but it was fucking packed.
Really?
It was crazy. Everybody showed up. I literally didn't think anyone was going to show up. And it was like beer nerds, other brewers, everybody showed up all at once. And I'm like, dude, this could work. I think we're onto something. And then we ran out of beer like that night. And like the next day, it was a Saturday when we opened. The Sunday, we almost had like 2 beers left over. And it was that way for a month. So people would come in. I just heard about you guys, brand new brewery. And we had like 2 beers on. I was like, because we're back then and we were only making 31 gallons at a time. And so those beers went very, very quickly. So it was just crazy.
31 gallons, that's one of those big things that we saw, right? Or no?
31 gallons. I'm looking around. It'd be like, gosh, 6, like water jugs. Mm-hmm. It'd be like 6 water jugs, essentially.
Oh, wow.
It's not much beer at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's gross, right? So net, we're losing 25 to 30%. And so you're talking, 5 water jugs, essentially 4.5 water jugs.
That's only like 3 days worth of beer.
It's not much beer. I mean, it turned out to be 1 day of beer.
I mean, for, one person.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So they, so after that, you obviously were like, I've got something here and we gotta basically expand this because the 6 isn't going to cut it.
True. Yes. All of that was in my mind. But again, financially, it's like, all right, well, we're broke. We already spent all the money. We got money from opening day, but now what? What do we do with it? Right. And so we just kind of pieced it together, man. It was absolutely crazy. I wish I had pictures. I can show you pictures because from where we are now back to where we were, it's absolutely night and day. So we had this one vessel, it was a 3-barrel tank, so I could make 93 gallons out of it. And in my mind, I'm like, man, that's so much beer.
Wow, yeah, it kind of is.
It is, but I'm like, I'm never going to be able to fill this up. Because again, 3 turns on the 1-barrel system. And it took, 18-hour brew days to get it done, but I got it filled up and good to go. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. And then eventually got a bigger boil kettle. It's a 3-barrel boil kettle. And then a 10-barrel mash tun. And it was like a dairy tank. Again, we're kind of in dairy land out there. Mm-hmm. And we just made it all work, man. And we did 1 mash, 3 pulls. So a mash is like all the grain goes in with hot water. That's where you extract your sugars. So you convert your starches that are in the grain to sugar. That's where you boil it to sanitize it, concentrate it, and then cool it down to add your yeast, and your yeast ferment it. This yeast needs sugar to produce alcohol. So all we're doing as brewers is essentially extracting grain starches, converting them to simple sugars, and then or complex sugars, depending on what you're trying to go for, and then fermenting it with the yeast, and then that's it. That's a whole brewer's job right there in a nutshell. And so that's all we were doing. So we had to do 1 mash, high gravity, so super high sugar, boil it, knock it out in the tank, do another one, another pull, and then knock it out into a tank, and then do another one, low gravity, last one, and then knock it out in the tank. And hopefully it worked. And we were that way for, until pre-COVID. So it was 4 years, almost 5 years on that system. And it was 18-hour days, absolutely brutal. Graining out, so taking all the grain out in 5-gallon buckets and putting into another vessel. It was backbreaking.
Wow.
It was crazy, the amount of work that we had to do to make beer.
So speaking of COVID, you started before COVID. It is obviously after COVID, and you are still there.
Yeah.
How did, because a lot of people can't say that. How did that happen?
I think there's so many reasons. I don't know. We got lucky. I think number one, 100% got lucky. I think our fan base was extremely loyal, and they knew the writing was on the wall for a lot of businesses, local businesses, and they supported everybody. I mean, they literally went out and supported everybody, and we were one of the lucky ones that they supported quite a bit. I thought that was really, really cool because it was like a very terrifying moment when when we first heard about it. It was kind of the beginning of our momentum, really. It's like after, I was 19, so it was like 4 years in essentially. And we just committed to buying this whole new brew house and brew system after one of our big anniversary parties. That was just a huge hit. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, buying a whole new brew house, I mean, big money. And so we're like, all right, we're committed to doing this and expanding and doing things right. And then we're watching the news and we're like, oh my gosh, like what is this? So Michelle and I are freaking out, trying to be clever with it and adapt as fast as possible. And, of course, a lot of it was, I don't want to say overblown, but it was a very, very scary thing at the moment.
I'll say that.
Right.
It was overblown.
Well, I think hindsight now we know it's like, okay, yeah, we probably could have done things a lot different, but back in the moment, you're like, holy shit, dude. All right. So then we figured out how to, we're canning everything already. So we're already packaging a ton of beer, and we're like, all right, let's just do a table at the front and have people do, can sales out the door. So we had one person per day, employee wise, and just selling a ton of craft beer or canned beer. It was wild. It was absolutely wild, but we had the support to get through. And then of course the state funding, we took advantage of that. There was the EIDL money, which is the economic injury disaster loans. We got a decent chunk of change for that. The paycheck protection program, because we didn't let anybody go. We didn't lay anybody off during the time. We just kind of had them rotate hours. So we got a decent amount of money for the paycheck protection program. And then, we took all that money because it was low interest loans and paid off the other loan that we took for the brew house. And so we actually came out of COVID ahead. It's like, all right, so now we got a lower interest rate for a longer term. So it's like almost no money per month. We paid off the brew house, paid off our crazy other debt that we had. That's based on growth and age of the business. Mm-hmm. Had all of our employees still there, still happy. So by the time COVID was over, we already knew how to adapt and shift quickly. And, the whole thing was just absolutely serendipitous. I think we just got lucky on so many levels. I felt like we also got a little tighter with our crowd too, because during a moment like that, it's sink or swim, right? And so you either find out who your true ones are or you don't see them again. Right. And we saw that. And so all of our regulars now definitely helped us out through that time. And it's cool to see now, you walk in the brewery and the bar is always full, and it's always the same people. It's like, hey, Andy, hey, Mark,
like Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
It's crazy. It is 100% like Cheers, So like, if you don't get there early, you're not getting a bar seat because everyone they show up every day. They know where to sit. That's their spot.
Yeah. Well, it's better on the tables because then the coloring books are right there.
That's true. That's true. We are family friendly. So yeah, coloring books. Actually, one of our regulars prints out a bunch of coloring sheets too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I went there, I brought my kids, and I didn't want them to like mess around or like play on their phones, or well, not their phones, my phone.
Yeah.
Or like ask for it, or anything. So like I saw those coloring books there, I was like, wow, what a good idea, because like if you have kids, you got a lot of coloring books, and they never color on all the pages.
No.
So it's like, if your kids are done with the coloring book, or bring that to the tasting room, let other kids. It's a genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how many crayons we go through though.
Yeah,
it's like a monthly order of crayons, like a bunch of crayons every month.
But a lot of them were probably my 3-year-old.
Yeah.
she really, really digs down into those crayons.
Yeah. I do too. It's like I haven't learned how to color. No, but it's fun. It's like having the opportunity to have a place where people come in and again feel comfortable enough to bring their kids.
Yeah,
like that's super cool. Coloring books is like one little incentive for them. Mm-hmm. The whole kitchen thing. So during COVID, speaking of craziness, I think it was the entire state. I don't think it was country. I think it was only California. There was a requirement, may have been county actually, I don't remember. But there was a requirement if you wanted a beer, you had to buy food. Oh. That for some reason stopped COVID, right? And so
yeah. I guess it slowed down on the DUIs maybe?
Maybe. I bet there's a lot of DUIs during that time. Everybody was drinking.
Oh yeah, actually, probably a good time for beer.
I think that's why it worked, right? Because like everybody's drinking, and you're at home working. Yeah. Like put in your coffee cup. Like no one's gonna know.
Yeah. Right? I know. I was constantly drinking, and I didn't get COVID, so
it works.
Well, I got it in 2019. I got it when it was really, really bad.
Yeah, so did we.
And it like knocked me out for a whole week.
I think we got it in 18. Like end of 18 is when both Michelle and I had it, and a couple of our friends. We all went to dinner. My wife's birthday is on the 24th. And so we always go out, either pre-Christmas or post-Christmas. And gosh, dude, we all got something gnarly. And then a couple months later, we see this. I'm like, oh, I bet that was that.
Yeah.
But then I got it again, gosh, probably in 2020.
Oh.
Super minor though. It's like a cold,
Yeah.
Of course, COVID positive.
Yeah, well, that was the thing is like, you have that scarlet letter now and you can't really go anywhere. And like, you are supposed to feel bad if you go into places, because you're killing grandma and stuff.
Yeah, poor grandma.
Man, grandma's still around though.
Yeah, see what happened?
Yeah,
it's all fake news.
Well, because she keeps drinking beer, that's why.
Exactly. It's funny. So many stories of like people drinking and smoking, like our grandparents' age.
Yeah,
they're fine. Like they've been smoking and drinking their entire life, and look at them, they're healthy as fuck.
Well, back then they used to. Didn't they used to say that cigarettes were healthy for you? And they had like 4 out of 5 doctors say that, Camels are the most healthy for you. And
I can imagine.
That's so wild,
That's
right?
a marketing pitch though, man. It worked. I mean, look at all those cigarette companies, dude, they were booming back then.
Well, and you find out like the that food pyramid that we always grew up on, that had like the bread at the bottom and the sweets at the top or whatever.
Yeah.
And it turns out like that's really not how you should do it. It was like the sugar companies that were paying for.
Yeah, it's actually quite opposite.
Yeah,
if you look at the new pyramid, like if there ever is a new pyramid, like I don't know, we all know how to eat healthier now than ever before, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy what has been gotten away with. I'm trying to take off my sweater. It's not really working.
Oh, is it? Okay, I thought it was a straight jacket.
Yeah, I felt like one. Yeah,
Houdini over here.
I know. I got out of it. Look at that. Ta-da. Yeah, I know the whole food pyramid thing is a total scam. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
But I think, again, just education of where we are now. And I think that's what's so great about podcasts, right? Like there's so much more information that's easily accessible to, I was listening to a health podcast on my way over here. It's like just easier ways to find information.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. You must have those same sounds at your house.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's funny because my wife and I have very different parenting techniques.
Yeah.
Hers is a little more, I don't want to say brash, but like the kids listen, right? Like they listen to her a lot more than they listen to me. And so I'm like, maybe I should do that. And it's more that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't say that they listen more when I'm in there. But sometimes, I mean, it's just, it's mainly the little one.
Yeah.
She just is a little tyrant.
Yeah.
She is very
She's
tyrant.
like 3 years old.
Yeah. She's a three-nager.
Yeah. Sure.
You know how it is. You've had one.
Yeah,
two,
man.
couple.
You know what's, a couple. I mean, I now have a 12 and 10, and I will say it gets a lot easier. 12 and 10, I think, honestly, 10, once they hit, even 9, once they hit 9, it seems to be much easier.
Yeah.
So just wait. I mean, you got an 8.
Yeah.
now.
Well, she'll actually be 9 on Sunday.
Okay, cool. So there you go. You're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's
She's
been
the
there
easy
for a
one, I'm
while.
assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's the one that helped me with the car. She would, she's like the daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And my other little girl, she's, I don't know whose little girl she is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know, maybe, the world, the dictators of the world are getting older, and there's a time for a new generation of dictators, and I've got one in there.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
yeah, tyrant.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's, so what'd you bring here? What's
What's
that one?
funny is one of the cans that you actually have. Do you want to do that? Let's do this pale ale.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is a beer we did with Cellar Maker out of San Francisco. I don't know if you know Cellar Maker, but they are just legendary in the beer scene. Like they have made such just a splash in the beer world. They were one of the first ones to do hazy beers, but not like the hazy beers we're doing now. So this is kind of an homage to that beer. It's a hazy West Coast pale ale. So West Coast style pale ale, which means a little more bitterness, a little drier, cleaner malt profile. And it's hazy based on one of the yeasts that we use, which is kind of like their house yeast, which just puts out haze, but it still makes a really nice, clean, dry beer. Where if you have like a hazy IPA out in the world these days, the yeast is an English yeast, and so it's much more expressive. And so you already get like these apricot peachy tones off of the yeast character, like yeast ester is what they called, where this doesn't have that. And then we hopped this with some really cool hops. So Simcoe, one of the big 3, it's like, the holy trinity of cooking essentially, or Mirepoix, whatever you want to call it. But in beer world, it's Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic. Those 3 are the most sold hops from United States. And so Simcoe is one of those. And Simcoe is a really, really pretty hop. It's changed quite a bit over the years, but currently this Simcoe is really nice. Almost more of like old school Simcoe, to where it has like the pine sap kind of pine resin thing, a little bit of pineapple, which is nice. And like a little bit of like a floral element, which is really cool. But then we use some New Zealand Ricau extraction, hop oil extraction. There you go.
All right.
And Nectaron, which is a relatively new hop out of Australia. And Nectaron's interesting. I haven't really found like the best use for it. I mean, obviously it works really well in West Coast beers. Like this has a ton of Nectaron. This other IPA here has a ton of Nectaron in it. I like it in hazies. I like it in West Coast. I don't know if I totally love it in a pale ale. That's almost a little too dominant, I think. It's just a very unique hop. I'm trying to like figure out how to use it because it's relatively brand new to the beer scene. But I do like this beer a lot, and it's lower ABV. This is a 5% beer. Again, to have Cellar Maker's logo on our can is mind blowing to me, right? Like they're not much older than us, but they've just made a huge impact. And like all the breweries that we looked up to, again, the journey kind of theme was breweries that we admired and still continue to admire. And so Cellar Maker is one of those. It's like, man, just to even email based, text based, these guys is like absolutely mind blowing that we're even having that same conversation.
Wow.
So really, really cool. Just like this, it's like one of those moments you get to take a step back and be like, that's really cool. Like we're hitting the mark,
Yeah. That's a total milestone right there.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And same with the like North Park. This other IPA is done with North Park. And again, I was raving about them earlier, but I just think like some of the coolest people making some of the best beer. Their technique is perfect sound. Like again, the whole analogy that we were come up with, like trying to pursue to perfection. If I make it, I'm going to be a little more critical about it. I don't know if you ever put together a wood floor. Well, you fucking built a car. So you know all the imperfections, right?
Yeah.
No one else is going to see those. Like I'm looking at the car. I don't really see any imperfections that I could tell, but you know where they all are, right?
Well, afterwards, I'll show you where the blood, sweat, and the tears are.
Yeah.
I have them in there. They're encased.
Oh, yeah. Perfect. They're encased. Yeah. It's the same thing with beer, man. It's like, like I know exactly where I messed up on everything, and I know where this could have been better on this side or whatever. But both these breweries, man, their beers are world class, and I don't see the imperfections on them. It's like you're drinking it, you're like, this is one of those. That's why I almost have to drink other people's beer to enjoy it more than drinking my own beer, because you get to take a step back and be like, all right, let me analyze. I'm still going to analyze it and break it down the way my palate wants to, but I'm picking apart recipe and process more than technical quality, because I already know, but based on who I'm buying these days, there's going to be no technical issues. So I can bypass all that and just figure out like, all right, what's going on here? Like, how can I take what I'm tasting and put into my own beer?
Oh, well,
yeah, there's always that.
Let's
Cheers,
try it out.
Dude. Let's do
Cheers,
it.
man.
Yeah, dude. Isn't that fun?
Yeah. That's nice. I love a good IPA. And you're right, it's not overpowering to where you're like, you almost need to like brew a chaser.
Right.
Or like like it's not something that's gonna like, this is also kind of like a drink all day beer.
It is. And it's low ABV. I think it's 5.6. So, it's like right in that mid range of like lower tier, like ABV. It's hoppy. So like you still get your hop fix out of it. So it's like a session IPA almost. Of course we call it a West Coast Pale Ale, but it's just a fun drinking experience too. Like from first sip all the way throughout, there's this wave of flavor. And then on the back end, like you get this like little texture thing, like a little doughy breadiness from the malt, and then it goes away and you're ready for another sip.
Yeah. I'm ready for another sip.
There we go. See, it works.
So what, like, obviously there's a big difference between the West Coast and the East Coast as far as beers. It's like,
oh yeah,
like the Biggie versus Tupac of beers.
yeah.
And why is the West Coast? I mean, maybe we're biased because we live out here and we're from here, but why is the West Coast so? It seems like that's such a better place for an independent brewer to thrive rather than the East Coast.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about better, because I feel like there's more competition out here. Right.
Oh, really?
Yeah. California alone has over 900 breweries. And we have 100 in Sacramento, so like, if you think about competitive advantage, I think there's other places that probably have less breweries if you're trying to be that kind of like mindset business person. Now, the good thing with being in California is that there's some of the best breweries in the world, right? And so, we're literally able to get some of the best brewers' beers, compare ours to those, and kind of be like, all right, let's fix ours, or we like it where it is, or whatever. So the good thing is the compare and contrast aspect of that. I think a lot of why the West Coast is the best coast, because we're so close to the hops, right? If you think about it, Yakima, Idaho, Oregon, it's like the big three of where everything is grown.
Even for the East Coast?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Michigan grows some really cool hops. New York is trying to get on the map, but there's not really like.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You have enough over there. Get out.
Yeah, you guys have the Ninja Turtles. You have Batman. You have Spider-Man. You don't need the hops too.
Don't need the hops too.
Yeah.
No, leave that to the desert and Yakima.
All we have is Ant-Man out here. We need something.
Was Ant-Man West Coast?
Yeah, he's San Francisco.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's the only one, I think.
Oh, wow.
Pretty sure.
Oh, that's an embarrassment.
I know.
That's our one thing.
That's what we have.
Oh, man.
That's it.
I'd rather have Batman.
I'd rather have at least one of the Ninja Turtles. Master Splinter. Give me April O'Neil, anything.
Yeah, shoot. Hey, remember April back in the day?
That yellow suit?
Dude.
Right?
Something about it.
Man, that's why the car's yellow.
That's not why.
No, that's not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but long story short, I think we have access to all the ingredients that we need. Like the grain is probably the furthest thing from us, but there's some great maltsters in California. Admiral malting is one that we don't use based on price because they're so fucking expensive, but incredible malt. I wish I could use more of them. In malt forward beers, we try to use it when we can. But IPAs, it's almost too malty for what we're trying to do. But, access to ingredients, I think is number one.
So the maltiness, is that what gives it that kind of thickness?
Oh boy. Yes, that's definitely a part of it. Extraction of sugars, kind of like going back to the brewer's job. You can extract based on your temperature and your pH range that you're hitting in your mash. You can extract different chains of sugars. So we're activating different enzymes to break down the starches to produce long chain or short chain sugars. Long chain sugars, they're more dextrose, they're more complex. And so you can make a bigger, richer, fuller beer based on a higher mash temp and a little bit higher pH. So, and of course, wort viscosity. So there's a lot of ways to tweak it. But yes, theoretically, those are the two big factors. And so if we want to make a West Coast beer, we're going on the lower range of mash temp to make a drier beer. So the yeast just ferments all the sugars out. But like hazy IPAs or even imperial stouts, we're going on the really, really high range of those temp ranges. And I feel like it works because you're not making a sweeter beer necessarily. It's sweeter numerically. So if you look at analysis of the amount of sugar left over from a West Coast beer to a hazy beer, there's a significant difference of sugar content left over. So of course, calorically, probably a little higher on the hazy than a West Coast. Well, I guess the alcohol kind of come past that too. But yeah, I bet it would be a little bit higher. But you're dealing with longer chain sugars on the hazy. So which leads to fuller bodied, more texture. If you look at the back of like most viscous products that you put in your mouth, it could be candies, it could be a lot of things, but maltodextrin is almost always on there. And so maltodextrin is a really long chain, non-fermentable complex sugar. So if we wanted to do a hazy IPA, we could add a bag of maltodextrin, increase the sugar quantity, make it non-fermentable, and then have more residual texture. I don't want to call it sweetness necessarily, but just call it sweetness based on a sugar aspect in that beer. But that's why I like West Coast. I think there's nothing with West Coast beers versus hazy beers is that they're super dry, right? They're nearly as dry as water on paper, which is crazy because it kind of gets weird, but they're really, really, really dry products. And so when you're drinking them, there's something to that. You still get texture, you still get like a little bit malty character, not necessarily residual sweetness, but like you get some sort of malty residual, and then it goes away. Where hazy beers, like they tend to hang on your palate a little bit longer.
Yeah.
A little different texture. So yeah, it kind of depends on what kind of sugars you're making. Not necessarily based on sweet or not, but there's definitely a component of sweet in hazies. I think that's why they got so popular though.
The hazies?
The hazies, yeah.
So why, I know that in my mind, I know what the hazies taste like, and I know what the IPAs taste, just, like a West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
But what makes it hazy? Like, why do they call it? Why do they call it that?
That's a good question. Heady Topper, my first journey to the East Coast, I went to Washington, D.C. for a big beer event, and we had a Heady Topper. And Heady Topper has already been out. It was like the first hazy beer ever released. They were talking about the Alchemist Brewing Company in I think they're in Vermont. They were like all the rage back in the day, but they were saying drink it out of the can because they don't want you to see that it's hazy, right? But they just found a way to add a hop level that was so hoppy, so insanely hopped that it produced like this tannic and polyphenol combination permanent haze. So you're getting polyphenol from the hops because it's a vegetal product, right? It's a plant. And then you're getting tannin from the grain, and you put those two together at the right temperature, at the right ratio, and you create this like permanent haze complex. And so they were the first ones to really do it, and that blew up. Really cool beer. I mean, it was kind of like back then, but it was back in 2017 when I first tried it. I mean, it was probably produced 3 years before that. I was like, holy fuck, like what is this? Like the hop character was insane. Danky, almost like a West Coast, but it had that haze and it had like that body and the texture thing that hazies did. So long story short, that just blew up and caught on fire. Everybody started to do that thing on the East Coast. And then it finally made its way to the West Coast. And I honestly still think North Park is probably one of the best on the West Coast to make hazies. Monkish. I'm sure you've heard of Monkish, maybe. They make some of the best. I mean, especially after like a month in the can, they need a little time to age, but they're unreal. Like the explosive aroma, explosive flavor. So what produces haze? I think a lot of that is that tannin protein complex. I think you definitely need to put that in. You don't want to use any findings at all, because findings, we use findings on the West Coast beers, obviously not this one, but that's why this beer is nice and clear. We don't filter anything, just use kind of this finding agent, which is a vegan friendly kind of silicon based finding agent. So it grabs all the positive charged ions and drops it all down. So you don't want to use any of that. And then the timing of your dry hop is really important, because dry hopping is when you add hops at the end of fermentation, after the beer is finished fermenting. So the alcohol's already been produced, you pull the yeast off, and you want to throw your hops in at that point. That's where you start to connect some of those tannin protein complexes as well. And so throwing your hops in at like a day 6 or a 7 versus a day 8, 9, 10, like that little bit of early contact kind of helps. Yeah. And even then, I mean, the yeast definitely stays in solution, and you'll see, if you, even we're guilty of it, but on the bottom of a can, if you pour a can of hazy into a glass and you look in the bottom of the can, there's a little bit of a yeast residual in that bottom of that can. And so if you're ever drinking a hazy out of a can, like, don't drink the last pour. I mean, it's a good vitamin B, folic acid shot, but like it's, it's probably not recommended unless there's a toilet nearby.
Well, that's why you gotta make sure you shake it up really well.
Yeah. How'd you do that?
You gotta shake it up really well so that you don't have that at the bottom.
That's true. You can tell you that. Yeah. What's funny, actually, there's a technique, more for like sour beer, mixed culture sour beer, which is a whole different game. But like it's a Santé swirl. You just kind of swirl it around a little bit.
In the can?
In the can or the bottle. Yeah. And you want that yeast to kind of come back in suspension.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't like it, but people do. It's a thing.
I mean, I'm a simple man, and I just drink it. But like, it's always interesting to like why people do this, or why people swirl the wine glass, or why they, like do the, like that kind of thing, because I've watched Frasier and he does that a lot.
Yeah.
And, it's just interesting to, to like, how do you enhance that sense, right? Because it's like a smell and taste, right?
Yeah.
And like, it just enhances that. So the rolling, it's only usually for sours?
Mixed culture sours, I definitely see it a lot in mixed culture sours, because you want some of that yeast, bacteria, whatever is in there to kind of come back into suspension. But yeah, I mean, the fruited sours, I mean, those are really popular right now still. And you definitely need to mix those up, because that fruit will drop out. And I see a lot of people like swirl their cans before they pour them, and they come out, like pour it and it looks like a milkshake.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had any of those before.
Pour it and looks like a milkshake. I mean, that sounds like, I don't know. That sounds like a bad time for me.
So they're delicious at a 5-ounce level, right? Like they're some of the most innovative beers in the craft beer scene, I think, at this point. But they're just not very drinkable in my mind. Like, I'd rather have something that's like this, or like this, or even like imperial stouts. I mean, I would rather drink 10 ounces of an imperial stout over 10 ounces of a fruited sour. But we still make them. We're guilty. I mean, like, we make them. I love them. I think they're really fun. They sell really well. Really cool to get creative and totally bizarre fruit concepts on them. We're doing a chocolate covered cherry sour coming up soon.
Oh, really?
It's like, yeah, with a bunch of like chocolate ice cream. That's like the products nowadays that we have access to, again, are so unreal.
It's like beer for the kids.
It is beer for the kids. That's exactly what, every time I make this, I'm like, all right, as long as the label doesn't look like a kid, it's like you're not marketing to kids. Yeah. But yeah. And we always say it's what the kids want.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we're almost 40, man.
21-year-olds are kind of kids now.
That's the thing. 100%. We're almost 40, and we're like, all right, well, what do the kids want? Yeah, that's it.
God.
That's what they want.
You're going to make me drink again here.
I know. Huh?
40.
It's sad. When is your birthday, actually?
It's in June.
Okay, yeah. So dude, you're close to 9. We're December.
Oh, really?
Yeah, both Michelle and I.
Well, I'll be 39 in June.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah, I like bridged that gap. I was just like able to do it. But
so I will say, I woke up on my 39th birthday feeling old.
Really?
We partied pretty hard the night before, but it's like literally I woke up and I've never woken up from a birthday and like asking a kid, do you feel older now? I actually felt older. Damn. So be ready for that. Embrace that.
Well, when I was turning 37, in my head, I was like, I'm turning 38, and so like when I like did the math and I was like, oh my gosh,
I did the same.
I'm not. And it's like, I got the extra year.
Yes. I did the same exact thing. 100%. It was a 37 or there's 38 to 39 is when I literally thought I was 37. And Michelle was like, no. Well, so I lost a year.
Oh, no.
Yeah. But I was off an entire year for a year.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just never did the math.
Yeah. Isn't that wild where it's like.
In my head, I was already there. Yeah, it's that one little guy.
It's that one mosquito.
Yeah.
Usually I have like a little electric tennis racket hooked up.
I saw that.
But I hit it too hard on something and like all the things are bent in.
Oh no.
So if you just turn it on, it's like a little taser. It's like
okay. Should scare the mosquito away at least.
You'd think.
No.
No.
Just leave it on the car and then it might get magnetized toward it.
Not a bad idea.
Well, don't do it now.
Well, I mean, we have like a big issue with mosquitoes out here. I'm sure you have it.
Yeah, Elk Grove is no better. Yep.
And we have like a little creek behind our house, and they throw like the little mosquito fish in there, which it's weird, right? Because you're putting little fish in there, and eventually this thing's gonna just dry out, But
I've never heard of mosquito fish.
What? Really?
What is this?
Well, it's half mosquito, half fish. No,
they fly.
It's literally their main source of food is just to eat mosquitoes and mosquito larvae.
That's incredible.
That they plant in the still water. If you call like 311 or something, and you say you have standing water in your backyard, or you have standing water, like there's a big huge there's a field behind you and there's this big huge puddle. They'll go by and they'll toss some fish in there like.
That's crazy.
Free of charge.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of fish these are?
They're tiny little, they almost look like minnows.
Okay.
Or not minnows, but tadpoles. They almost look like tadpoles.
That's wild.
Yeah, and...
What a great solution.
Well, yeah, right?
Until the water dries up, I guess. You're killing one thing to kill another thing.
They have one job, and when the job is done, I guess so are they.
Yeah.
But, we have a pond out there. And for a while, we couldn't get the filtration set up. We had the water flowing, and so we just got fish from Petco.
Yeah,
and dumped them in there. And 3-4 years, they're still in there.
Okay,
and
no mosquitoes.
No mosquitoes. And then we had them come by and drop mosquito fish in there too. But now the mosquito fish are having babies, and the goldfish are eating the mosquito fish babies. So it's like a whole ecosystem. And now we have frogs out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Look at you.
Yeah, we got Genghis and Napoleon frogs. Yeah, I named them. The little one and the big one.
Yeah, they just try to dominate everything else?
Well, they try, but Genghis is always the dominant one.
Yeah.
Napoleon is, he's not small. He's just average size for the time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But, and it's weird to think they just throw the fish in there. But it's something that they do for free.
That's incredible.
And but it's really not, it's not working everywhere. And so my wife bought me this citronella plant.
Yeah.
You probably saw that empty pot that's out there with just dirt and a dead plant in there.
So you took care of it well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a plant person, I'm where plants go to die.
Yeah. I'm the same. I don't have a green thumb at all.
Yeah.
No, can't do that.
That's why somebody else grows the hops.
Yes. Yes. And we just buy it from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're much better.
So it's weird to think that now there's so many different businesses within the beer business. You were mentioning people grow the hops, and you mentioned some people just do the mash, right?
Yeah.
Some people just do the or I guess it's the same people that grow the hops that do the pelletizing, right?
Well, not always. My bad. So there's a lot of really cool hops growing in New Zealand right now. And what they do is they ship bales up to either Idaho or Washington, and they're pelletized at their facility because they're higher quality or better equipment than what they can do in New Zealand currently. Same with, I guess Australia kind of does their own thing, but some of Australian hops, they have really sexy names and people like the name of it, but then the quality of the hop kind of sucks.
Oh,
You know, I think Galaxy is one of those. It's like Galaxy is such a cool hop when it's great. It's a shitty hop when it sucks. And the whole last 5 years have sucked pretty substantially across the board.
oh, shout out.
I know,
Galaxy.
right? Yeah. Hop Products Australia. Figure it out, dude. No, I think this last year they definitely figured it out. But you know, yeah. So I think there's always these middlemen, right? And that's the thing. And with any world, I get a billion emails a day. It could be a can provider, right? Think about that, right? So
Right.
aluminum tariffs just kicked in, by the way. That's one thing that I don't totally agree with on Trump.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know?
hopefully we get some kind of tax relief to like offset that.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Because that's a 30% increase of, again, I'm biased because I buy a lot of aluminum, obviously. Yeah, so like stuff like that. There's always the can purveyors that are hitting us up and label companies. Gosh, there's transport companies. I mean, think about how much goes in and out of a brewery. I mean, a transport company could make a lot of money off us.
What about glass? Would you? I mean, I didn't see you had a couple bottles in there, right?
Yeah, we don't. So we do. That's just weird about us. So IPAs, anything clean based. So we call clean beer like this beer, non-barrel aged. We'll go into aluminum can, and we do the black can with like a whole like vintage gold top, super sexy look.
Yeah, I'll say.
I think only one in Sacramento using black cans, by the way.
Good for Saints fans. All you Saints fans
actually,
out
you
there.
know what? That's cool, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not a Saints fan, but I do like their colors.
Neither am I, but I respect them nonetheless.
Yeah, I do agree. I agree, especially when Drew Brees is in charge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then bottles are, we have a 375 ml barrel aged beer that goes into the 375 ml bottles. And then every now and then we do clear glass 500s. Every now and then we do 375 green glass. Now we have all these different glasses for different purposes. The brown glass obviously keeps light away. So we like, if it's a dark beer, which doesn't really matter, but it's kind of a cooler looking package because it's dark on dark. And then with cool copper wax, our labels are, I try to find one of the stats because our labels are, we've spent a lot of money on our labels. So it's a die cut label, just like kind of like these are like die cut on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's foil and embossed. So it has the gold copper texture and it's embossed. So it's like actually ridged. And then the texture design on that logo is the same like hexagon kind of honeycomb pattern as our back tile wall. And so it's kind of cool. It's like you look at the label, be like, oh, that looks familiar. You come to the brewery and be like, oh, that's where they got it. You know, so it's like kind of connecting place to label to concept and all that. So yeah, spend a lot of money on the labels and those go on the stouts. And then the 500 ml clear glass, usually barrel aged sours. I don't want to say that. So kettle sours, I'll say we go into clear glass, not always barrel aged. Sometimes they are. We just did a rum barrel aged fruit cocktail sour. So kettle sour, which means no mixed culture, just clean. But it was coconut cream, passion fruit, and orange. And the beer was outrageous. It was 8.5%, 9%. It just drinks like a tiki cocktail. It was
a good source of vitamin C.
I guarantee it. It was real. Yeah, real OJ. Yeah. And then the green glass. I'm a super nerd when it comes to mixed culture beers. That's how I started. I got really into it during homebrewing. The brewery started out with mixed culture beers. And that's like, post-COVID, you can't sell those beers. Like nobody wants them. They're not sexy at all. But there's still something very personal, and like I still want to make a lot of them. So we killed the whole program, but I'm going to bring it back because I really want to. But
why do you say post-COVID?
I don't know what changed. I really don't know, because then the consumerism is what changed. I don't know if it's just not the flavor profile that people like. I should have brought one too, because we still have a couple lingering around, but there's such a unique experience. So if you drink beer, Belgium, it's kind of where the whole thing started. Farmhouse beers, lambic, goose, that sort of thing. Like there's this one region, the Seine Valley of Belgium, like it's so good for what they do. It's spontaneous beer, right? So you make the wort, so you do your mash, you do your boil, you put it into like this big open container, let it cool down overnight, naturally, just outside, or in a farmhouse with open windows. The cool breeze in Belgium, I mean, usually we have to have 2 days of freezing, near freezing, but then the cool breeze will bring in this random bacteria, yeast, everything that's in the air. Kind of like how wine is like native ferment, like the whole natural wine thing. Mm-hmm. Same kind of concept. And so then you get this wild fermented beverage, and it's super high in probiotic. It's tart. It has this like Brettanomyces sort of like wild yeast funk character that could be anywhere from really bright peach to, leather, or like they call it horse blanket. And so like they're very dynamic beers. They're really, really cool experiences. Definitely not a beer you want to drink every day because, your stomach acid may not be able to handle that.
Yeah.
But I think they're just fun beverages. It's like, that's what we love doing. So anyway, long story short, those go into green glass because I want a little bit of that light struck character, because when the light does come in, and I don't know if you've had Heineken before, right? Like a little bit like a skunky character. Mm-hmm. That's technically an off flavor. We don't want that necessarily, but I think in the right beer with the right level of like nostalgic kick kind of adds a really cool element. I'm like, I'm down for that. Let's try it.
Yeah, I maybe it was a couple of years ago, or maybe 1 or 2 years ago, but that's when I realized that there are different color bottles, and that actually means something.
Yeah.
If I don't know if you know, but like you probably do, but Corona, right? Mm-hmm. It's in the clear bottle.
Yeah.
And it's named Corona, like the sun. Right. And so if you leave it in the sun for a little bit, it has a different taste, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's debatable, but some would say that it tastes better being in the sun. It's meant to be drank in the sun.
Yeah, that's what's funny about it.
And it's wild because are they like that? The color of the glass is actually playing into the flavor so much that they named it Corona, right? As a side eye kind of thing, but it's almost like they're playing chess.
They're playing
2 steps
checkers,
ahead. Like that's a wild thing, right?
That is a pretty wild thing. I didn't actually know that. That's kind of cool. But it makes sense. I mean, clear glass, it's gonna get sunstruck. Like it's all part of it. Like it's supposed to. And again, some of that flavor is nostalgic, right? Like it's not a flavor that I'm looking for in an everyday beverage, but it's cool. It's fun. I think, like I remember, if you remember, like marketing years ago, even before I was even into beer, but I remember Sam Adams, Boston Lager, they had like the high 6-pack carriers to kind of block the light out.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's kind of just clever marketing. I doubt it did anything, it's just cool. But yeah, they were trying to avoid sunlight, and like that's one of the first craft brewers that like was kind of like getting into my mind of like, all right, like these guys are different, something about this brand is different.
Well, when I think East Coast beer, I think Sam Adams.
Yeah, that's what you can't not, right?
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Yingling is the oldest family owned brewery.
Oh yeah.
Brooklyn Lager, I think Brooklyn Beer Co. I think is always on my mind. Yeah, dude. So speaking of East Coast, so I did this crazy trip. So anniversary, end of January for the brewery.
This was the trip that you were just on recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just did. So the week prior, actually the 2 months prior to anniversary is always fucking nuts, right? It's prep work, it's ordering, it's raw materials, it's getting shirt designs, and I do all the artwork for everything. So it's like getting all the label designs done, getting all the beers produced, getting everything planned and timed, and make sure labels are in on time, make sure stickers are here, and make sure the event goes well. The event went off without a hitch, right? Absolutely beautiful. And then I'm like, all right, so that was a Saturday. We had a baseball game for my little dude Sunday. And then so we went to there, go partied at the park. We literally just brought a flat top and, it was like micheladas and mimosas and burritos while he's playing baseball. I love it.
Nice.
And then Sunday morning, I fly out at 5 a.m. And first stop was Denver, quick little stop, fly up to Fargo, North Dakota. I swear that this whole
Stay
trip,
away from the wood chippers.
This whole trip was a place where all the cities that you would never normally think of going, it turned out to be some of the coolest cities I've ever been to. Mm-hmm. So Fargo, man. So the brewery we brewed with, Drecker Brewing Company, like they big heavy in the fruited sour thing, like what we're talking about, the whole like smoothie sour.
Mm-hmm. The roller.
Yeah, roll your can, definitely. They dominate in the world, like the nation of what they do with those sours. And they're in Fargo, North Dakota. And so I'm like, all right, we're going to brew with these guys. We're doing a West Coast IPA. And so that was me. I hit the table.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was my daughter's scooter or something.
Yeah, no, that was all me. And so like this is a West Coast IPA on their system. And so we're there hanging out, doing the thing. And, we're talking about sours. I'm taking a lot of information back with me. But there's this dive bar called Duffy's out there. And there's not much to do in North Dakota. Obviously, there's not much to do. Fargo is probably the biggest city in North Dakota. And it was cold and snowy, as you can imagine, end of January. But we get to this dive bar called Duffy's, and everybody warned us, like, if you go to Duffy's, just be careful, because like they're like, don't order a double. I was like, all right, cool. Like, well, let's get there. So $4 Woodfords, single pour, a double size, $2 Pabst. So for $6 a person, you're like, all right, I got a double Woodford essentially and a Pabst. We're throwing darts all night. 4 or 5 of those later, we're like, all right, now we got to wake up early the next morning to brew again because they're doing a double batch on the system. So that was tough, but had a great time, dude. Fargo was absolutely incredible. It was dry by the time we got there, but it was just one of the cooler experiences. Great food. Apparently, there's a big like Scandinavian culture out in Fargo, which makes sense. Bunch of white people,
I guess. Yeah, because I imagine that would be, you know how like people would say. I mean, some people would say like, oh, Canada should be the 51st state. I think Canada looks at North Dakota and is like, that should be my next province.
Yes, I 100% agree. And they could easily take it. Yeah. I don't know if there's any.
I don't know. Maybe when Canada plays U.S. again in hockey, maybe the stakes are a little higher.
Yeah. It's in Boston this time, though.
Is it?
Yeah. Was last round in Boston or was it in Calgary?
Last one was it was in Canada.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it Toronto or Calgary or something like that? I just saw highlights of it.
I forget.
What, 5 fights in?
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
many fights.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I read this thing. So apparently a while ago, there were like these guys that were duking it out like 30 seconds into the game, Canada and US.
Yeah.
And now those guys' like sons are in this game.
How funny.
And 3 seconds in, they started
I love
doing
it, dude. I love it.
Almost brings a tear to your eye.
It really does. Yeah.
That's what sports is about.
Following your dad's footsteps.
Yeah. Fight even quicker than he did. Have even a shittier temper than he did.
I love it.
You know?
Hey, hockey, man.
Hey, well, that's what we watch. We watch the fights.
Have you ice skated before? Do you play hockey?
I don't play hockey, but I could ice skate backwards.
Oh, no way. So you could play hockey.
I could, but I can't fight on the ice, dude.
Okay. So I was watching the fights.
Everywhere.
Yeah, I was watching the fights. I just recently went ice skating for the first time, like legitimately ice skating at a legit ice rink. Mm-hmm. It's so hard, like incredibly difficult. And so I'm watching these fights. I'm like, I have such a different level of respect now for these hockey players.
Yeah. Because
not only are they on ice, right? I'm sorry, slippery as hell. You're taking a punch to the face, right? You're obviously holding on to the other guy, but you're not falling at all. Out of the 3 fights I saw, I didn't see anybody fall.
Yeah.
Did anybody?
I feel like maybe there were like some hard, really like egregious checks that people fell.
I saw a couple of those, yeah.
but I don't think any of the fights people fell.
Right.
It is wild that those guys
before. It's absolutely wild. Yeah. And just to do what they do on ice, man, like a whole new level of respect. I broke my ankles just trying to stand up.
Well, and you look at these other, like the exhibition games, right? You look at the NBA All-Star game and it's like, LeBron decides he's not going to play an hour before or whatever, and then you look at the NFL and it's like, well, we're just doing a throwing contest and now we're playing flag football on a half field, you know? And hockey, it's like, this game doesn't matter. It's an exhibition game, but we are beating the shit out of each other like we're at war.
Yes.
100%. And so you got to respect that.
Yeah. And the lowest paid athletes too, which is absolutely outrageous. That's so crazy.
Baseball's the highest paid, and I just can't stand it.
So it's funny. I love baseball. Only really, I didn't love baseball at all when growing up. Like I never played baseball, never really got into it. And then once my son started playing, he started playing when he was 3. He's 12 now. So we've been into it for quite a while. Totally got into it. Totally hooked. Spring training. If you've never been to spring training.
Oh yeah.
Arizona? You've probably gone to spring training. Yeah. We went to the Arizona one. It was so much fun. It was such a great experience. Definitely got more involved after that. Mm. Yeah. So now it's just a ton of fun. But I think there's other sports I'd prefer to watch because it's not the most exciting thing to watch on TV.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, for me, like I had to do the baseball for when I was a kid too, because my mom didn't want me staying home playing video games.
Yeah.
Whatever. So I was the kid that was in like the outfield looking for frogs.
Yeah.
And Josh, look out, the ball's coming,
Yeah.
And that was just not my thing, And like working in baseball, it was like, it's such a grind because there's so many games, coming like from football. It's like you only have 10 games. That includes preseason. Sure. To where now you have 82 and that's only the home games. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
It was wild, but the crowds at baseball games so much better than the crowds at football games.
Really?
Yeah.
In what way?
Just like
Just not killing each other?
I mean, well, you spent a lot of money going to a football game.
Yeah.
And you don't go to all the football games. You go to maybe a one or something.
That's true.
And people are more people tend to get more physical and more emotionally charged when it's football because the players are being super physical, where it's like baseball, it's all about stats. And it's like, yeah, well, in 1948, well, blah blah blah,
totally.
And you've never seen anybody hit like that since,
right?
Or something like that. I can't remember if I've ever seen, and this is in Oakland. I can't remember if I've ever seen a fight over a baseball game.
I've never seen one. I bet they've happened.
I'm sure they've
happened.
I don't doubt it.
Football games,
yeah,
which is crazy because like you would always go to, growing up, I would always go to Niners games or Raiders games.
Yeah.
And it's like, you never really, it was different back then. I guess, blinders were on, but nowadays I see fights all the time on like Instagram or whatever else. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
Like I want to take my kids to those games and I'm kind of afraid to take them. I doubt anything would ever happen, but.
Yeah. Go to a preseason game then.
Yeah, we should.
Or when they play the Jets.
Yeah.
Like play a shitty team and then nobody really, don't go to a Cowboys game or Packers or like, I guess now Lions or definitely not an Eagles game.
Eagles, yeah.
But, because I want to take my kid to a preseason game too, at least the oldest one. And like she's been to the stadium a bunch of times, but never during like a game and been a fan. Sure.
Yeah, and how do you? Again, nothing would happen. I bet with with the kids, but you still want to subject it to them. Be like, hey, watch this guy get his ass kicked over here.
Yeah, here, enjoy your $20 cold hot dog.
Yeah, let's just watch this for a minute. Let's see how this pans out.
Yeah, I mean, but she's been to hockey games, and so like, but she gets pretty rowdy.
Does she?
Yeah, she's like we.
So
went
she's going to be the instigator.
Yeah, we went to the last game at Oakland, the Coliseum.
Yeah.
And so she was chanting like, "Fuck John Fisher."
Oh my gosh. I love it, dude.
Like 8 years old. It's like, I told her like, well, he wants to just make money. He's not really about making the team better. And but that's not right.
Yeah. And this whole move thing totally sucks.
Yeah.
It does suck.
I mean, even though they are like kind of in our backyard now.
The cool thing is that's that, right? We have access to every game, super close. The downside is like the tickets are still expensive, probably more expensive than they were in Oakland.
Well, they're going to do everything to make the tickets expensive. Like they're going to do everything they can to make however many seats they can premium seating.
So, you probably go to River Cats games and you've seen the stadium. The stadium is great. It's easy access. Literally every seat has a great view. I heard we got some tickets, and one of the games are coming up. I think it's the Yankees game. The lawn seats are like $300, and you're like it's sectioned off, so like you have one seat in the lawn. Like that's not the way it should be. Lawn seats should be open seating. Like you grab your spot. Again, River Cats games maybe a little different. Throw a blanket out, let the kids run around. You're hanging out, watching baseball. If there's a home run or bullpen, whatever, like you're hanging out there. It's going to be a very different experience, I think, with the A's coming to town.
Yeah, with Yankees, with Giants, with and I think maybe the Red Sox, there's always going to be super expensive tickets because they know that game is going to sell out. It's going to
sell out no matter what. So
they could charge whatever they want.
Yeah.
The other ones, that's the one you want to go to, but it's going to be super hot there.
Yeah. And that's the crazy. I don't think the players are ready for that. They've been playing in Oakland. Of course, they travel and they're experiencing some heat, but Sacramento heat's different.
Most of the heat places, though, are domes.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's kind of the same with football. It's like you go to play the Cardinals, you're playing in a dome.
Yep.
You play in Buffalo. For some reason, they don't have a dome and it snows always.
Yeah.
But, it seems like you ought to get a dome. But it's like you're going to play outside and you're going to have some pushback from the MLB Players Association from this.
I'd be curious to see what happens with that.
Yeah, 'cause we'll see.
They show up, and obviously the fans are going to show up no matter what, right? I think there's enough fans in Sacramento that are going to show up to every game. Where obviously the diehard Oakland may show up here and there, but they're going to have no problem selling tickets. I think they're going to sell more tickets here than they did in Oakland. But just I think the weather is just going to be a factor.
Yeah, I mean the area around there was something that you didn't really want to get involved in. You know,
yeah.
Even riding BART out there, just every year it just got a little bit sketchier,
Yeah.
a little bit sketchier, and out here. Which, by the way, if y'all are listening at A's Food and Beverage, it would be a shame if you missed out on this opportunity to carry this beer in the stadium.
Hey, the Sacramento Haze.
Yeah.
Did you see that online today or yesterday?
No, what?
So it was funny. So of course we have the A's coming to town, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like looking for a name for this beer that was we had a beer in tank ready to go. And I was like, we need to make an A's beer. Like we've been thinking about it for a long time, but like this is going to be the beer. Let's do it. And so I made this label and it's the Sacramento Haze, which is perfect. The A's capitalized, no copyright infringement. It's 100% my own creative aspect. There's no A's logo or
it's a
anything.
cursive A. Anybody could make a cursive
exactly.
A.
Yeah. So Sacramento Haze is coming up. We're canning that Friday as well. So it'll be the first official Sacramento A's beer.
Oh,
so yeah, I don't think we have enough to produce to like get in the stadium or whatever, but like, I don't know if I even want to. That's a monster of its own.
That's such a road to go down,
Yeah.
It would just be one ballpark, though.
That's true. And that we know a lot of other craft breweries that they have a really cool craft beer bar section over there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, we have no problem doing that, but yeah, just the volume of, I guarantee it would be probably the number one selling just based on the name alone, right? Just being like the name of the Sacramento A's. And the beer's super cool. So like, the beer tastes great and it's going to do well. The marketing behind it's great. So yeah, I know we'll see what happens, but
you're starting it this Friday?
Yeah, canning Friday.
Damn, I'm gonna have to make another trip out there, I guess.
I know, huh? Come on out.
I always thought that it would be a good idea for them to like move to San Jose and become the San Jose's.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Wouldn't that be a good idea?
That's a great idea.
It's a missed opportunity, but I don't think the Giants would let them have that territory.
It's far enough away, though, you would think. I mean, Oakland is closer to San Francisco than San Jose.
Yeah. Territories are tricky with these guys. They don't want it. Once they get it, they don't want to give it up because they have their AAA team in San Jose. They have the San Jose Giants now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so, like,
but River Cats is a feeder team to the Giants too, isn't it?
It is now. It used to be feeder team to the A's.
That's true.
So I really don't know who the feeder team to the A's is. I think they are a feeder team.
Interesting. Okay.
But like
the A's are the feeder team to other MLBs.
To everybody else who wants to give them a paycheck, basically.
Yeah, that's funny.
Okay. Oh, hey.
Yeah, so this is the North Park.
It.
I mean, look how clear that is. That's such a pretty beer. So this is the North Park IPA. I mean, it's a bigger beer. It's 7.5%, which I try to have IPAs under 7, like I was telling you earlier. But this one, the higher ABV, the more extraction you can get, the cooler hop flavor and aroma you can get. And so that's kind of what this thing is. This thing is just packed full of hops. And that Nectaron, see, it's a weird, like melon, underripe fruit, green fruit kind of character. I don't know how to describe Nectaron entirely. The Simcoe, a little bit of Simcoe in there, kind of like a Stellenmaker beer, but then Riwaka from New Zealand. Riwaka is a really cool hop. That's like kumquat and orange zest, tangerine zest. And then Nelson Sauvin from the Nelson region of New Zealand. Nelson is just, I don't know, it's one of those hops that like absolutely came out on fire maybe in the last 5-6 years. It's probably been growing for 30 years, but it's become really popular in the last few years. It has like a white wine quality, just like Sauvignon Blanc. As the Nelson Sauvin is its name. So it has like that white wine quality, it has like a gooseberry quality. A little dankiness too, like they say diesel fuel, but I almost get like cannabis-like character out of it. Yeah, I really like this beer because it's just another one of those flavor journeys that's dry on the back end. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I like the drier when it's it makes me feel like I'm not drinking as much as I am almost.
Yeah, and that's what's nice about it. You don't feel full.
Yeah,
and that's why. So the other thing is drink beer out of a glass because if you drink out of the can, all that carbonation is going straight into your gut. And so you feel fuller, like you feel bloated. Where if you pour into a can or pour into a glass, like the CO2 breaks out and you get a nice little foam. You break out a lot of the CO2, so it's softer, easier to drink, but then the foam on top keeps the aroma in, and so you get a better flavor experience throughout the drinking. Now, of course, if you're at a ballpark, drink out of the fucking can because who cares?
Right.
You're just enjoying.
It's just going to get warm.
Yeah, drink it fast too. Yeah,
Get two.
yeah.
Yeah.
You always have to. I'm not going to go back.
Well, yeah, because then you're spending like I don't know $75 for 2 cans, and you just I have to open them both for you. I know you do. God.
Yeah.
So I try to do the one and then the one, and then I get down and it's like,
yeah,
that nastiness at the bottom, 'cause it's Corona in a can, not in the glass bottle,
right,
so
right.
it doesn't
at 90
get affected.
degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty the things we do, huh?
I mean, the things we do
Just
and the
to catch
amount
a
that we
buzz
think
at a
about
baseball
them.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
So before the show, you had mentioned an interesting tidbit about what you guys are getting into now.
Oh yeah. So we started this project back in September, and September is kind of harvest season for all the things. It's hop harvest, but it's also wine harvest. And it was one of those crazy things. I'm like, hey, I've been wanting to do, we're big into wine, big winos. And came from wine background, did a lot of wine study, went to Bordeaux and tasted a bunch of wines out there. And so I was talking to Michelle. Yeah.
That's not something to really just glaze over.
Yeah, well, it was crazy. I literally tasted all of 2014 on premiere in Bordeaux and buying futures for Nugget, which is crazy. It was just, the whole thing was just a surreal experience.
Damn.
Literally, you wake up at 8 a.m., you get to a chateau at 9, 10, and you're drinking wine from 10 to 5 p.m., hundreds of wines.
You're supposed to spit it out though, right?
You spit it out, but even then, you
you
it's like nicotine. You put a pouch in, guess what? You're feeling it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and then we'd have dinner and drink more wine and then do it all over. We did that for 7 days straight. It was the craziest experience I've ever had. I probably tasted, I don't even know, 700, 800 wines that day or that week. Wow. It was almost 100 a day. It was crazy. It was, and from the barrel. So like none of these wines are ready, right? They're just like tannic bombs and big Bordeaux. So Cab, Merlot. So you're drinking these things. And you're like, dude, I just want some beer. Every day I'd get home back to the hotel. I'm like, all right, I'm going to the beer bar, and I would just drink Stella. It's all they had was Stella. I'm like, dude, nothing tasted better. It was so good. Okay, yeah, but that's all a different story. So then, so I was talking to Michelle. I'm like, hey, like if we want to do this wine thing, now's the time to do it because it's harvest season. So we hit up our winemaker buddy and was like, hey, like what do you think it would take to get this thing going? He's like, well, if we want to do it, let's go walk a vineyard tomorrow, and then we can get fruit in and go from there. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's check it out. Go walk the vineyard. First one was Bokish. I don't know if you know wines that well in the Lodi region, all the wine from Lodi. But Bokish is like making growing and making some beautiful wines, like weird things. And so we tasted some Picpoul, which is a French varietal, high acid white. And we're like, all right, I fell in love with that. Let's do that. Grenache Blanc, could be French, could be Spanish, Graciano. And so I'm like, all right, let's do that. Went to another vineyard, just got a huge accolade, but Abba Vineyards in Lodi. We got Syrah, Grenache, Noir from them, and Little Cinsault and Mourvèdre. So I thought we were just going to walk vineyards and do whatever, but I tasted the grapes and kind of like, all right, and we're talking numbers, but in my mind, I wasn't like totally thinking what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then after leaving the vineyards, our winemaker buddy was like, hey, so like, how much do you guys want of each? And I was like, well, like, what do you mean? He's like, well, you don't have to pay until December. He's like, just take what you need. Take what you want for the harvest. And both Michelle and I look at each other like, all right, like, fuck, I guess we're doing this. And so like we came up with a number, like how many cases we want, found how much volume we needed. And then the next day, all the fruit came in. It was crazy. Picpoul was a little bit later, but like the Grenache Blanc, Syrah, Grenache Noir, the Mourvèdre, that all came in like the next day. And so I go over to the winery, we're helping them, punch and press and do all the things. And I'm like, this is absolutely wild. This is actually happening. So long story short, here we are. We're bottling in about a week and a half from now. So Flatland Wine Company is its own thing. And so this first round is going to be all white wine. And then the one Grenache Noir that spent about 4 months in barrel. And just absolutely crazy to have this whole thing really work out because I didn't think it was going to actually be this quick. So Pig Pool, high acid white wine, very floral, white flower aromatic, like super stoked on that. That should be incredible. The Grenache Blanc, both those from Bocage. Grenache Blanc is insane. Like it's like a Sauvignon Blanc on more of a floral steroid kick. Like it's one of the cooler wines I think I've ever tasted. And then a rosé is Cinsault, which is cool. Like we drink a ton of rosé in the summertime. It's
Rosé all day.
Rosé all day. Yeah. Like literally we just drink it like water. Like we just chug it. Like we each get our own bottle with a straw and chug a bottle.
Oh man.
Yeah, we don't do that, but we should. We will now.
I have rules. I only drink beer when I'm working on the car. I only drink wine when I'm playing video games.
Okay. I like it. Okay. You're not going to fuck up the car that way.
Yeah, well, I have.
Okay. Yeah, the kiddie beer. Yeah.
You know how it is. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah, I get it.
How like, so you have received the grapes.
Yeah. So that whole, it was just a crazy, crazy process. And so from selecting the grapes to having them come in and processing grapes, it's a ton of fruit, like literally a ton of fruit. And like we have 2 of these big macro bins, and Christopher Sellers, the guy helping us out. I don't know if you guys definitely check out Christopher Sellers, one of the best wineries in the area. And so young kid too, just doing his thing, young family, super awesome people. And so we became friends with him because our lives kind of just met, right? Just worked out. And so, yeah, long story short, fruit comes in and he just has this process. He just like knows exactly what to do. And we press. And so the whites are pretty much fruit comes in, press immediately, get the juice out, ferment the juice. Grenache, we did some whole cluster fermentation. And so we're just leaving the fruit whole intact, not changing anything about it, straight from harvest to the bin, and then letting it kind of do its thing in the bin. So it kind of has like this micro fermentation inside of the bin, inside of the fruit. So almost carbonic maceration. So you're getting a little bit of like a different fruitier profile out of it. And then half was whole berry fermentation. So half just went straight fermentation. Then that other half got pressed, combined together, and then all pressed and then into barrel after fermentation. And then, Grenache Blanc, same thing, just pressed off fruit and just got juice and fermented that out. Rosé is fun. Like rosé is one of those things that rosé is a red wine, right? Most of the time, sometimes there's like white blends blended in there, but most of the time it's a red wine that's just a little bit of skin contact, pressed off, and then extracted the juice. And so you're pretty much getting this really, really light pink colored, salmon colored wine off of a red wine, but it's still so young and fresh, never touched oak. So it's still all stainless. So you get like this really bright, high acid sort of like slap across the face, watermelon, raspberry aroma. It's really, really cool. Yeah. So this new whole project is crazy to me.
So did you guys have to get a bunch of new equipment too for this?
No. So that's kind of the hairy part. So we will be making some things on site. 95% of everything is produced at the winery. So it's contract, right? So like we're like, hey, Chris, I want this and this and this. I'll help you out as much as I need. We'll be there bottling day. We've been there a lot recently, but it's only like 1.5 miles, 2 miles down from the brewery, so it's super easy to get there. But we have all the equipment to do this, right? We don't have to press necessarily. We have the punch down tools, but we're not going to do that there. The cool thing with this license though, because it's O2 wine growers license, it allows us to make cider. And so all cider, any fruit fermentation I can do on site now. And so we can buy a bunch of crazy fruit puree fermentation things like these fruited sours that we are talking about earlier. It's really just a bunch of fruit puree into a can on a alcoholic based beer or seltzer. And so I can do that and just ferment out the fruit, just add wine yeast or some sort of yeast, cider yeast to the tank after adding a bunch of fruit to it. So I can make like this crazy fucking cider that, just get totally weird with it. So that's the cool thing I'm excited for because it opens up the avenues of like which direction you want to go. Like obviously we're a brewery, we're going to make a lot of beer and that be the primary focus. But now we have this other thing. It's like, well, we can make a cider or we can make a bunch of weird shit off of that. And of course, any wine or any fruit fermentation we can do now legally.
Wow. That is insane.
Yeah. So it just definitely opens it up. But the whole wine thing, dude, just having wine alone, it's going to be cool. Draft wine at the brewery, which is just going to be fun. I don't know. We have the kitchen too. So like wine, beer dinners are going to be super sick. I can't wait for that. Just a bunch of like, literally like my brain is always going of like how to tweak things, and having this, I'm like tasting these wines. I'm like, there's nothing to tweak here. Like we're done. Yeah. Like it's already great.
I mean, how much are you going to do?
So this first year is tricky, right? Because we really are just at the mercy of how much we bought. And we're equivalent wise, it'll be 300 cases of this first run. So all the whites and the rosé will be 300 cases. And then the red, we're hoping for also about 300 cases. So 600 cases this first year.
Wow.
I think that's good enough. I don't know if we need more than that next year. Because I'm already starting to get emails now of like all the growers be like, hey, like since you bought from us last year, we're, trying to plan out this year's strategy. And I'm like, in my mind, we hadn't even done anything with these wines yet. I'm like,
right.
I don't want to commit to more fruit until we figure out what this tastes like.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 600 cases total, which in my mind is a fucking shitload.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not going to, like with the beer, we have to wholesale a little bit. We sell 85 to 90% in the tap room. But, with the wine, I'm trying to go 100% in the tap room and not do anything outside. Because again,
really?
It's also, we're not getting any more white wine until next year, right? And so it won't be ready until this time next year. And so I can't really, if we run out, I don't want to hurt myself by not having it available.
Plus, it's a little bit more contracted out than the beer is.
Yeah, so that's very, very true. Yeah.
So your margins are a little slimmer on that.
Totally. All of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we got a good deal worked out because he's trying to do a beer thing. And if that comes to fruition, we'll just kind of trade.
Yeah.
So like that could work pretty well. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just based on the way the wines are tasting now. So here's another crazy story. He just sent me this article. Ripley Family Vineyards in Lodi. They just got, there's the big competition in San Francisco called San Francisco Chronicle Competition, like the big wine competition over, I don't know, 2,000 wines or whatever. And this one wine got best of show, pretty much like highest quality of all judging out of all wines, right? So best of show, but also like literally the best, highest rated wine of all the entire competition. And it's the same exact Grenache that we pulled during the time we pulled it from the vineyard that we pulled from. So it's like, all right, well, sick. Processed the same way, spent same amount of time in barrel. And so I'm like, well, that's crazy. Like this world's greatest wine, essentially, like California's greatest wine, just got nominated, and like we have the same fruit and we're bottling in 2 weeks from now. I'm like, that's cool. I knew it tasted good when I tasted it, but like having judges say that, of course, different winery, a little bit different things here and there, but just gives me a little more confidence in it. I'm like, all right, like I think we're going to be pretty fucking close to that wine.
Because your raw ingredients are solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's funny. Like beer, we're talking about it too. Like they want consistency and agricultural and focus and all that stuff. It's the brewer's job to make really good beer.
Yeah.
It's the grower's job to make really good wine, right? Like the winemaker definitely has a hard job because he's at the mercy of the fruit he's getting in. But if it's really good fruit, when we got lucky this year because wine is on a downward trend, it's not selling as well as it used to. So a lot of these guys have extra fruit to sell, especially at the volume we purchased at in the grand scheme is a very small amount compared to like a Gallo or, like these big wineries.
Or like Josh Winery.
Even Josh Winery.
Yeah.
I think that's owned by Gallo, isn't it?
Is it?
I believe so. I don't know. I should double check.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, they buy probably a shitload of fruit. Right. And so for us buying, a ton or two here and there, it's like not that big of a deal. So like we were able to sneak on the radar and kind of get some really cool fruit. But yeah, I mean, it made, I think Chris's job a lot easier making these wines because the fruit was so freaking good that I was like, hey, now you just do your weird techniques. So the cool thing with Chris too, he's like me, super nerd, but on the wine side, right? Like I could get nerdy with wine, but he knows the equivalent that I know of beer to wine.
The Chico state to the Sonoma state.
Yeah,
almost.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a great analogy. I like that. And so like, I was like, hey, whatever you want to do. Like I have the weird little like criteria that I want to make these wines fit into. But I was like, if you want to try a new technique or like whole berry fermentation, whatever you want to do, like let's fucking do it and try it out. And so for him, it was just a cool, like, experimentation, passion project that he can't quite do on his own wines, or that he didn't want to quite do on his own wines, because his own winery makes a ton more wine than we do. And so it was a cool, like, little experimentation for him. Be like, hey, let me see what this does. I'll do it on the smaller side, and then if it works, we'll implement it to ours. And I think with the rosé, our rosé is fucking lights out, and he was like, I'm going to do that too. So he changed his rosé based on how we wanted our rosé. And so now it's like, all right, like that's just one of those cool things. Like, I don't know, like obviously this guy knows what the fuck he's doing. And for us to influence him a little bit, I'm like, that's cool. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of what it seems like that's kind of what this industry it's all about, right?
Oh yeah.
You learn from this guy, but now like people are learning from you. So you're there. You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah.
Absolutely wild. It's funny how many phone calls or texts I get asking beer questions from other breweries around the area.
Wow.
I'm always humbled by it. I'm like, man, that's cool. Like they trust me enough to ask for advice about what to do in a random scenario, right? Like one guy just asked about a haze, like permanent haze. I remember what makes hazy beer. Mm-hmm. He keeps getting this one keg or one style of beer that drops out and oxidizing a little bit. And I was like, I don't know, check this and this and this. You know, it's like just one of those things. Like I've never experienced that, but I could probably figure out how to solve the problem. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's just cool to be at that level now. I'm at 9 years, I guess I'm the old dog. You know, people come to me for advice.
I mean, I know what you mean because, well, somewhat. I don't really make money off of it anymore, but like for cars, you know, like people come to me like with car questions. Even like some of my buddies that are car guys,
yeah,
you know, come to me and ask me, and I go to other people and ask too. And it's just that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah,
you know,
it is. And you know,
their passions.
You know what's about, and that's it, man. If you're passionate about it, you're going to ask questions because you're intrigued to learn, right? You want to continue learning. And you know, I feel like if I were to ask a question to somebody, I already have my own process of how I'd probably do it. I'm really just asking for reassurance.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I'm asking you this question because I'm either going to do it one of two ways. And then I'm hoping one of what you say is one of what I want to do, or the opposite. It's at least one of my two options. And then that makes me feel more confident about doing what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Right. Unless you throw me a curveball and it's totally different. Like, well, fuck. All right. Now I got to rethink this. You know, maybe I'll try it and see what happens.
Hey, you get those every once in a while.
Yeah, that definitely happens.
You know,
it definitely happens.
I think when you're rolling out the red.
Gosh, well, we're doing the Grenache Noir early, so we're doing that with this bottling run March 1st, probably releasing sometime mid-April, and then the big reds. So the Syrah Grenache Merveille, we're trying to do like a Côte de Rhône sort of Chateauneuf de Pop blend. That'll be 10-year anniversary. So January of 20, what would that be?
2026.
2026. Fuck.
Yeah. That's a real number now. That's a real year.
I haven't even thought about 26 at all.
People aren't even talking about like a new Mayan calendar where the world's going to end. It's just like, hey, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah. At this point, we just gave up. Know? Nothing's happening.
Yeah. Nothing's happening.
Until the meteor hits.
I mean, but now the meteor, we can like nuke it away. Apparently.
That's true. Yeah. Supersonic, or what are those missiles called?
Like, I mean, so
Elon's
now
got
it's really just super volcano.
Elon's got our back.
Super volcano or super earthquake, right?
That's true. Both of those are possible, I guess, right?
Especially here.
Yeah, especially here. I'm still waiting for that big earthquake, man. I think we're far enough north that we should be okay, but you know, if it's big enough, we're becoming our own island.
Elk Grove in Sacramento will be some beachfront property.
Dude, hey, we have a beer named Beachfront Avenue. Yeah. It's worth high value now.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think we should do this again when you roll out the whites.
Yeah, we should. I'll bring a bunch of wines over and we'll taste through them.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
That sounds fun.
Hey, it's good to have you here,
Cheers,
man.
dude.
Cheers.
Nice to be caught in the moment.
Hey. All right. See you guys.